Good morning, kids. Good morning, parents. In today's lesson, we're going to learn Vienna Gambit, Vienna game, and a bishop opening. Right. Now, let's see. We can learn that from a white side and a black side. This is how the bishop opening starts. E4, E5, and bishop to C4. I had a friend who was a grandmaster, and he used to play this opening, and he was very successful with this move. So let's see. Now, what's the idea of this move? Bishop to c4. White wants to develop the bishop first before the knight. In some ideas, he wants to play like d3 and maybe even f4, right? Or he wants to play d3 and c3 and perhaps even put the knight on e2, right? So that's the idea. Now, what do we do here with the black side? Black can play knight f6 and white plays d3. So I'm going to now switch to the black side because I want to make sure that you understand what's going on here. Look, of course you can continue playing knight c6. If you play knight c6, then the game is probably going to end up in a similar positions that you usually play, right? But what you can do here, if you want, it is your choice. You can play move c6. And now you want to build up this center. You want to push the pawn to d5. Knight f3 and d5. So this is what you can do. Now bishop goes to b3. And we'll stop here. We are going to look at a very interesting line with pawn takes on e4, but we can also see what black can do with this bishop, right? Bishop could go to d6, protect the pawn, right? There's also a very interesting move like a5, right? Look at this move, because you're trying to trap the bishop on a4. Let's see this a little bit, right? You push, and now white has to play a3 or a4, right? And then you push again, right? So bishop has to go back, and you can play move like bishop to d6 and protect your pawn here, right? So that's one way to develop the pieces. Bishop on d6 is excellent, and now you can make castling. Now let's go back and see what else can we do here. If the pawn takes, right? If you take the pawn, it's actually not a free pawn. White can play knight g5. Now after knight g5, white is threatening to take on f7. So there's this attack. And if black cannot protect this pawn on f7, so bishop c5, right? But look what's going on. There is a fork here, and black can play now queen b6. So I just want to show you, this is like one little trick, here. If the knight takes on h8, right, you could capture on f2, check, and if the king goes to f1, you play bishop to g4. So the queen is kind of trapped, right? So queen has to go to d2, and then you play e3, right? So queen has to go to c3, and then e2 checkmate. This is like funny checkmate. I mean, you could try something like this, right? It's fun. But you also have to be careful, because white doesn't have to take the rook. White can, like key on queen b6, of course, white has to make a castling, run away with a king. And then you can move your rook to f8, but here white has a better game, because white is castled, the black king is in the center of the board. Although it's still a very interesting game, right? And it is playable. You can try, right? But I mean, this is like a kind of little trick with d takes on e4. But if you want to have a very solid game, then here you could play bishop d6, or the move that I showed you, a5, is also a very, very cool move, right? Bishop d6. And you see there is no problem here with the castling and developing the pieces. If white takes on d5, you could take with a pawn or with a knight, right? So that's possible, right? White may try like to play moves like this, right? Knight e3 and attack this pawn, but you can also protect it, right? So that's possible, right? For instance, let's look at this one, because this is maybe how the kids would play. They would make a pin, right, and they want to attack that piece, but here one like if you move the bishop right back, and if bishop takes, you are not going to take with a queen. You can take with a pawn, and now the black center is very powerful, right? And the rook can go to g8 and attack. And actually, king is not in trouble here in the center of the board, because there is this protection with the pawns, and the center is very strong. The next move might be knight c6, and perhaps you can even castle to the queen side, right? But this rook g8 attack on g2 would be very strong. So this is like a little introduction to this bishop opening, and if you like it, you can play this way. Um, I think this move c6 is very cool, right? So if you want to change a little bit and not play always the same openings like knight c6 and bishop c5, you could play something like this: c6 and then push pawn to d5, right? But this can happen only if white develops the bishop first, not the knight, because otherwise this pawn on e5 is attacked. Okay, let's see. Is there anything else that we need to know about this bishop opening? Definitely knight f6 is the best one. D3, right? So like I said, if you want to try c6, knight f3, d5, bishop b3. Yeah, that's pretty much what you need to remember. And here, like I said, I gave you a choice. If you want to play bishop d6 with the black side, if you want to play a5, you can do that as well. Yeah, those two moves are very solid, right? Now that move d takes e4, I would not do it with a black, although I showed you that checkmate, right? But still, this is dangerous for black. You have to be careful here, right? Because the white doesn't have to accept your challenge and take on h8. So white doesn't have to take the rook, right? So that's the bishop opening. Okay, let's go now to Vienna game. Vienna game starts with e4, e5, and knight c3. Now, Vienna, I actually lived in Vienna for several years, and I can understand why do they play this opening, because Vienna is such a relaxed town. They drink cappuccinos all day long, and they like those slow games like 93. I guess that's not going to be happening in America. So let's see what's this opening all about. Look, the idea of knight c3 is I'm sorry. I guess I'm talking too much. The idea is to develop this knight, protect the pawn, but at the same time, this also could be the idea to push the pawn to f4, right? We are going to look at that move, but we are also going to look at the move like bishop c4. So right now, look, logical move again as knight f6. You want to develop this knight and play bishop to c5, maybe even bishop b4, right? So let's look at two moves here. We're going to study bishop to c4 and f4. If bishop goes to c4, look, of course, you can continue with knight c6 and you are going to transfer to the game to the positions that you play all the time on the chess tournaments. You know this very well, right? But if you want to try something different, right? Let me introduce you to this idea. Look, this very cool idea. You take the pawn. Now, we are going to study three moves here. We're going to study bishop to f7, knight to e4, and queen to h5. Queen to h5 is the most important move. But let's see this. Knight e4. And here you are going to get your piece back by playing a fork. Remember this idea, because this is really an important idea, not only for this opening, but for many other openings. So bishop goes to d3. You can take on e4. Bishop takes on e4. And now, again, if you want to play bishop d6 and just develop your piece, sure, fine. It's a great move, right? But if you want to have like a kind of interesting game, then you could play pawn to f5, right? This is a sharp move. And when the bishop goes back, right, here you could develop this way. Bishop goes to e6, and let's say queen goes to e2, attacks the pawn on e5, you can protect it, right? And this is like a very different setup, right? You could play like this. It's really a different setup than what you usually play in the tournaments, right? So that's one line. Let's see now. Let's go back and see what would happen if bishop takes on f7. Now, don't be afraid of this move, because you take, king takes, and after knight takes e4, you push pawn to d5. Now, look, your king is on f7, right? But not in a dangerous position. There are no white pieces attacking your king. So black has a very strong, powerful center with the 2 pawns. Knight will have to move right back, and here you can develop your piece. Like, for instance, you can play bishop to d6, right? And we'll develop the knight to c6, and you can even play like rook f8 if you want, and then king goes to g8, and you make like kind of artificial castling. You can do that. So anyway, I'm just telling you, this is not dangerous. You don't have to be scared or afraid of king on f7. You are going to be fine. So look, again, I'm giving you the idea. Knight c6, rook can go to f8, and then if you want, you can move your king to g8. And it makes sense to put the king on g8, because rook on f8 is attacking on that open f file, right? So this would be a very, very solid way to play that. Now let's go to this main move, queen h5. White wants to make a checkmate, right? Now you have to move your knight, and you go back to d6, attacking the bishop and protecting yourself on f7. Bishop can go to b3, right here. And now black is a pawn up, right? That's clear. But white has a little bit of the attack here, right? So it's clear that there is some kind of initiative here for a white, because three pieces are developed, and this f7 is attacked. Now, is it that dangerous for black? Not really. I mean, look, you could develop your develop your pieces. You can try to run away if you want to play bishop e7 and then castling. You could do something like that. You can even give this pawn back if the queen wants to take on e5. That's okay, right? I think this is solid, right? Look, bishop e7. If you want to play like this, let him take on e5, and you make a castling, and it's fine, right? So that's what you can do here with the black side on Vienna game. If someone does Vienna game, you could play this. How do you practice this opening? Uh, you can you can go back to this study, and if you want to see like a little bit more, again, you can click on this button here, and the computer is going to show you the openings in this study. But you can also find openings under the tools. You go to Opening Explorer, right? And that's how you can even study any opening you want, right? So when you click here, not only, let me move my camera, you are going to get different kind of moves. You see this here gives us that white can play d4, knight f3, and here down there you can see important games, right? See this game here, black won, right? Here also black won. Here there's a draw. Here there's a draw. That tells you that this game is okay for black, right? Now, those two players are very strong, both of them very strong grandmasters. Fabiano Caruana is number 2 in the world, and Giri is one of the young grandmasters from India, and they played this game, and it ended up in a draw in 2014. So this is Vienna game. Now let's go back. There was one other move that I promised you, right? We're gonna see. Oh, I told you we're gonna see this move. Now this looks like a king's gambit, right? Because white is pushing the pawn on the side, and it looks like a king's gambit. The only difference is that we have a knight on c3 and knight on f6. So if you remember, in some of our lessons, we talked about this move d5. And you see, this move d5 is coming back to us again. This is the best move in this position. So you play d5, and now a white can take on d5, or can take on e5. Like if he takes on e5, we can just take on e4, and you are threatening to play queen h4. Check. Right? Let's say white plays more like knight f3. Right? That's possible. And you see here, both sides have a very, very nice game. So I don't worry about this position for you playing with the black side. You can play here bishop e7 if you want, and just run away and make a castling, right? You are going to be fine here. Now let's see what's happening after e takes d5. Here again, you can play different moves. You could take on f4. It leads into a very sharp position. You can take on d5. It's also very interesting, right? Or you can push the pawn and not allow this kind of cool move, because you are not allowing white to develop to f3. So if d3 is played, right, to get rid of this pawn, you don't take on d3, but you play move bishop b4, right? And now bishop d2, there's an interesting move you can play here. That's pawn to e3, from Paul Morphy's game. If you go to Paul Morphy's lessons, I think we have them in intermediate one. We recorded some lessons there about Paul Morphy. Maybe that game is there. Maybe we talked about this game. But an interesting move, e3, right, and bishop takes, and then you can make a castling, right? And if the bishop continues developing, you just play rook here. So the idea is to give that pawn but attack on e5. So now, if you like sharp games, you could play this way, right? Or if you prefer to play like if you want to say, well, let's say you want to play here a pawn takes on f4, you can also do that, right? And now you need to protect this pawn by playing bishop to d6 right here. This is also cool, right? You can play this kind of opening. I guess this is an interesting line as well, right? And the other option that you can play is knight to d5 right here. You can play knight takes d5, and that's also fine. Now look, the most important is to remember this move, pawn to d5 right here. Sorry, I had to stop recording. My little 5-year-old daughter entered the room. So let's see where did we stop. So basically we talked about this position, right? And then f4. And I told you this move d5, right? That's the most important one. And here we talked about e4, we talked about e takes on e4, but you could also capture on d5, right? So if you like this way, you can do it. This is clearly very sharp opening. Now I can play check, and here king has to go to e2. Right. Now, don't think this is bad for white. I actually just saw a game. One very strong grandmaster played with a white side, and he won the game. So it looks like white king is in a bad position. Yeah, that is true. But at the same time, there are some other important things that matters for this game. And white is pawn up, right? So pawn up for this king on e2, and the game can continue this way, like queen e4 or bishop to g4 check, right? And king goes now to f2, and when the pawn takes, knight goes to f3, and this is the game that you can practice for both sides, right? Cool game. Let's see a little bit also. I like actually this move, bishop to g4. I like this move. And then after knight f3, play knight c6, attack the pawn on e5, right? And then after d4, castling. So this seemed to me like a nice solid game for black. So you could play this way as well. So let's summarize this and see what is the most important. After e4, e5, we had this move knight c3, we play knight f6, and on f4, just remember this move d5, right? That's what you need to play if you get into this position. And now white can take on e5 or white can take on d5. We studied both of those lines, right? If you remember pawn to d5, then everything is fine, right? You are going to get a good game. Okay, kids, we studied this new opening that's called Vienna game, right? That starts with knight e3, and we also studied the bishop opening that goes with bishop c4, and here the most important was this move c6 that we played with the idea d5. Okay, again, if you get into this opening on the chess tournaments, you should let me know. Okay, bye bye. Have a good day. Bye bye.